This is the story of the best rejection I ever received. It's always disappointing when you apply for a job and you get rejected, especially when it's a job that you really wanted. During my time in radio, a lot of guys aspired to work at larger stations, bigger markets, more powerful stations. One of my fellow students from college ended up working at the #1 station in Los Angeles. Another friend of mine was hired to do mornings in New York City. But I grew up in Texas, and when I got into the business, I started listening to one particular station in Dallas. No, it wasn't the #1 station at the time, but I fell in love with them. They were an AM/FM combo called KVIL. It was licensed to a small enclave inside of Dallas called Highland Park. When I started listening to them, the format was 3 songs in a row. The middle one was always an oldie. And the jocks didn't scream, they weren't silly, they just had a conversation with the listener. It's really hard to describe, but they were very engaging, and they knew all of the ins and outs of Dallas. It was like if you listened to that radio station, you knew exactly what Dallas sounded like, what they thought like, what it tasted like. The morning man and PD at KVIL was a man named Ron Chapman. He had been in the Dallas market for years. He was a morning show host back in the 50s and 60s on the #1 radio station. He had also been the host of an afternoon American Bandstand type TV show. Over the next few years, that station was sold to Fairbanks Broadcasting, who came in, spent a lot of money, and just changed a little bit of what they were doing, but that still propelled them into the #1 radio station slot in Dallas. I had been in Odessa, Midland, Texas for a couple of years, building a staff and a radio station that was just so much fun to work at and really had a tremendous following. One of our jocks left us, went to Dallas, and ended up getting an overnight position at, you guessed it, KVIL. After a few months, he called me and said, you know, they've got another position open, and if you like, I can get you an interview with Ron Chapman. So I put together an audition tape, drove to Dallas. This guy was indeed one of my radio idols, and he was impressed enough with my friend who was working for him to want to see me. So I waited in the lobby. I could see into the air studio, big floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a busy freeway of Dallas. And Ron Chapman came out of his office, we shook hands, and walked into the production room. We chatted for a little while, and then he listened to my audition tape. I don't really remember what we chatted about because of what happened next. He played my tape, and he listened for a pretty good while, but then he stopped it and said, you know, I hire people for KVIL based on 2 criteria. #1, are they good enough for KVIL? #2, if they were somewhere else in the market, would I be worried? He said, you're good enough for KVIL, but if you were somewhere else in the market, I wouldn't be worried. That was the most excellent rejection I ever got. I mean, he said I was good enough for KVIL. What a confidence booster. And you know, even though a lot of radio folks have super inflated egos or sometimes a lack of self-confidence, that was a big boost. His words were both sustaining and affirming.
Ron Chapman, Susie Humphreys, along with Jody Dean, Michael Ray, and the whole gang right here on KVIL.
103.7
Ron Chapman was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame and the Texas Radio Hall of Fame. Sadly, he passed away in 2021 after 31 years on KVIL and 5 more years at the oldie station in Dallas, KLUV. These are stories I've been wanting to tell for a while, so I hope you enjoy them. If you do, hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Thanks for watching. For now, That's a wrap.